Apple shares down more than 9% over the last month. I want to come over to you, Kevin. You actually recently bought some Apple. So I think the question for you is, did you buy because of the weakness? Were you essentially buying the dip, or was there some other reason to add to the Devo portfolio?
No, Frank, we were buying the dip. This was a stock that we sold out of in its entirety back in December for the valuation concern that maybe it's just not worth 240, 250, got up to as high as 260 almost around Christmas time. So we were out of the position completely. That was the 10th time that we've sold Apple over the past 13 years. And everyone freaks out when we sell Apple, but sometimes, you know, it's a little expensive. So we try to sell high and buy low. It's not a perfect science. But down here at 230, 12% off those highs, it gave us an opportunity to just start to slowly rebuild that position. But to Bryn's point, this is not the most growth-centric of the Mag 7, but we like the share buybacks. We believe in the Apple iPhone 17 product. The service model is great. So with patience, between 230 and 200, we'll rebuild that position.
So people were freaking out when you sold Apple. Are people freaking out that you bought Apple? I mean, some recent reports, that Canalys one in particular, about the decline in iPhone shipments in China, Apple now in third place in China, double-digit declines for 2024. Are you freaking out a little bit that maybe the narrative that we saw last year about weakness in China, and some people said, it's speculation, that it may actually be a reality?
Yeah, I think that their China sales are going to continue to decrease. They can't put the AI on that product at all. And, you know, who knows? China, I think their GDP came out at 5% today. Like, how perfect is that? So you can't always trust their economic numbers, but you can trust the sales that we see out of Apple, and we know that that's decelerating. So if you're into the stock or getting into it like we are, it has to be a thesis outside of a China play.
So, Bryn, you're also an Apple shareholder. Are you concerned about some of the issues that Apple has in China? And do you think it's possibly indicative of this whole Mag 7 basket, that maybe we've seen the best days from these Mag 7 names? NVIDIA comes to mind. I mean, just incredible blowout earnings reports. I think the law of big numbers is, how much longer can it last?
Right. Well, I think Steve and I actually on the same day cut my Apple position in half in December of last year, really because of just like valuations. I think there's other opportunities. I bought more Robinhood, bought more Uber. I just think there's other companies where I see earnings growth, I see positive sentiment in the market. And so I think Apple, once again, we all use Apple products. I think Tim Cook is one of the most amazing, CEOs. I just think that there's a time and place for me to have a bigger position in Apple, and that place is not today, because I really do want to see not their earnings growth, because that's financial engineering from buybacks. You want to see some revenue growth, and I just don't see any signs of that to be picking up. And so that's why I reduced the position to add to other names where I see clear growth, and I saw much more opportunity to have capital appreciation in 2025.
So, Brent, I'm hearing a lot of skepticism. Just by the way, Apple named the top pick by Citi, outperformed by Evercore. Raymond James also has it as outperformed. Brenda, you're also a shareholder of Apple. The street seems to like the name a lot. Here on the desk, some questions about valuation and things like that. How do you deal with it? I think it's also important to note that CEO Tim Cook, he seems to have a very good relationship with the incoming president.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be increasingly important as we're seeing all of these tech companies really becoming much more Washington-centric more recently. But as regards to Apple, I do think valuation is still rich. As we've talked about, I do think that revenue growth is going, relative to the other names in the Mag 7, is going to be limited here. We think it's a positive that they have a new product coming out with AI. But so far, reviews have been mixed on the product. I think it's further out in terms of a replacement cycle, but we think one is coming. So that being said, we are at neutral weight position. We do own Apple, but don't think it is the right time to add more exposure here. But we are sticking with the exposure that we have.